Прошло 10 месяцев с моего последнего видео. Это, конечно, полный cringe, I'm so sorry. Но у меня сначала в семье произошла ситуация, а потом я как-то была демотивирована. Меня закрутило лето. И сейчас я с новым вдохновением возвращаюсь. И сегодня мне бы хотелось почитать стихотворение, мою любимую поэму Алены Гинзберга, точнее послушать ее. Мы будем уже записанную слушать. И будут звуки рук, такой небольшой эмбиент, фикс от вина. Мне кажется, все вместе это звучит довольно хорошо. Поехали слушать.
Howl by Alena Gинзберга for Carl Solomon. I saw the best minds of my generation destroyed by madness, starving, hysterical, naked, dragging themselves through the Negro streets at dawn, looking for an angry fix. Angel-headed hipsters burning for the ancient, heavenly connection to the starry dynamo in the machinery of night, who poverty and tatters and hollow-eyed and high set up smoking in the supernatural darkness of cold water flats floating across the tops of cities, contemplating jazz, who bear their brains to heaven under the unsung Mohammedan angels staggering on tenement roofs illuminated, who passed through universities with ready and cool eyes, hallucinating Arkansas and Blake-like tragedy among the scholars of war, who were expelled from the academies for crazy and publishing obscene odes on the windows of the skull, who cowered in unshaven rooms in underwear, burning their money in waste baskets and listening to the terror through the wall, who got busted in their pubic beards returning through Laredo with a belt of marijuana for New York, who ate fire in pain hotels or drank turpentine in Paradise Alley, death or purgatory their torsos night after night with dreams, with drugs, with waking nightmares, alcohol and cock and endless balls, incomparable blind streets of shuddering cloud and lightning in the mind, leaping towards poles of Canada and Patterson, illuminating all the motionless world of time between, peyote solidities of holes, backyard green tree cemetery dawns, wine drunkenness over the rooftops, storefront barrows of tea hat, joyride, neon blinking traffic light, sun and moon and tree vibrations in the roaring winter dusks of Brooklyn, Ashcan rantings, and kind king light of mind, who chain themselves to subways for the endless ride from Battery to Holy Bronx on Benson Train until the noise of wheels and children brought them down, shuddering mouth racked and battered bleak of brain, all drain of brilliance in the dread light of zoo, who sank all night in submarine light of big forts floated out and sat through the stale beer afternoon in desolate fugazes, listening to the crack of doom on the hydrogen jukebox, who talked continuously 70 hours from park to pad to bar to Bellevue to museum to the Brooklyn Bridge, a lost battalion of platonic conversationalists jumping down the stoops of fire escapes, off windowsills, off Empire State out of the moon, yakety-yaking, screaming, vomiting, whispering facts and memories and anecdotes and eyeball kicks and shocks of hospitals and jails and wars, whole intellects disgorged in total recall for 7 days and nights with brilliant eyes, meet for the synagogue cast on the pavement, who vanished into nowheres and New Jersey, leaving a trail of ambitious picture postcards of Atlantic City Hall, suffering eastern sweats and Tangerian bone grindings and migraines of China, under junk withdrawal in Newark's bleak furnished room, who wandered around and around at midnight in the railroad yard, wondering where to go and when, leaving no broken hearts, who lit cigarettes in boxcars, racketing through snow toward lonesome farms in grandfather night, who studied Plotinus, Poe, St. John of the Cross telepathy, and Bob Kabbalah, because the cosmos instinctively vibrated at their feet in Kansas, who loaned it through the streets of Idaho, seeking visionary Indian angels, who were visionary Indian angels, who thought they were only mad when Baltimore gleamed in supernatural ecstasy, who jumped in limousines with the Chinaman of Oklahoma on the impulse of winter midnight, street light, small town rain, who lounged hungry and lonesome through Houston, seeking jazz or sax or soup, and followed the brilliant Spaniard to converse about America and eternity, a hopeless task, and so took ship to Africa, who disappeared into the volcanoes of Mexico, leaving behind nothing but the shadow of a dungarees and the lava and ash of poetry scattered in Fireplace, Chicago, who reappeared on the West Coast, investigating the FBI in beards and shorts with big pacifist eyes, sexy in their dark skin, passing out incomprehensible leaflets, who burned cigarette holes in their arms protesting the narcotic tobacco haze of capitalism, who distributed super communist pamphlets in Union Square weeping and undressing while the sirens of Los Alamos wailed them down and wailed down Wall, and Staten Island Ferry also wailed, who broke down crying in white gymnasiums, naked and trembling before the machinery of other skeletons, who bit detectives on neck and shrieked with delight in police cars for committing no crime but their own wild cooking pederasty and intoxication, who howled on their knees in the subway and were dragged off the roof, waving genitals and manuscripts, who let themselves be fucked in the ass by saintly motorcyclists and screamed with joy, who blew and were blown by those human seraphim, the sailors' caresses of Atlantic and Caribbean love, who bawled in the morning, in the evenings, in rose gardens, in the grass of public parks and cemeteries, scattering their semen freely to whomever come who may, who hiccuped endlessly, trying to giggle but wound out with a sob behind a patrician in a Turkish bath when the blonde and naked angel came to pierce them with a sword, who lost their love boys to the three old truths of fate, the one-eyed truth of the heterosexual dollar, the one-eyed truth that winks out of the womb, and the one-eyed truth that does nothing but sit on her ass and snip the intellectual golden threads of the craftsman's loom, who copulated ecstatic and insatiate with a bottle of beer, a sweetheart, a package of cigarettes, a candle, and fell off the bed and continued along the floor and down the hall and ended fainting on the wall with a vision of ultimate cunt and convoluting the logism of consciousness, sweetened the snatches of a million girls trembling in the sunset, and were red-eyed in the morning but prepared to sweeten the snatch of the sunrise, flashing buttocks under barns and naked in the lake, who went out whoring through Colorado in myriad stolen night cars, and see secret hero of these poems, coxman and Adonis of Denver, joy to the memory of his innumerable lays of girls in empty lots and dinner backyards, movie houses, rickety rows, on mountain tops and caves, or with gaunt waitresses in familiar roadside, lonely petticoat upliftings, and especially secret gas station solipsisms of John's and Hometown Alley too, who faded out in vast sordid movies, were shifted in dreams, woke up in a sudden Manhattan, and picked themselves up out of basements, hungover with heartless Tokay and horrors of Third Avenue iron dreams, and stumbled to unemployment offices, who walked all night with their shoes full of blood on the snowbank docks, waiting for a door in the East River to open to a room full of steam, heat, and opium, who created suicidal dramas on the apartment cliff banks of the Hudson under wartime blue floodlight of the moon, and their hats shall be crowned with laurel in oblivion, who ate the lamb stew of the imagination, or digested the crab at the muddy bottom of the rivers of Bowery, who wept at the romance of the streets with their push carts full of onions and bad music, who sat in boxes, breathing in the darkness under the bridge, and rose up to build harpsichords in their lofts, who coughed on the 6th floor of Harlem, crowned with flame under the tubercular sky, surrounded by orange crates of theology, who scribbled all night, rocking and rolling over lofty incantations, which in the yellow morning were stanzas of gibberish, who cooked rotten animals, lung, heart, feet, tail, borscht, or tortillas, dreaming of the pure vegetable kingdom, who plunged themselves under the meat trucks looking for an egg, who threw their watches off the roof to cast their ballot for eternity outside of time, and alarm clocks fell on their heads every day for the next decade, who set their wrists 3 times successfully, unsuccessfully, gave up, and were forced to open antique stores where they thought they were growing old, and cried, who were buried alive in their innocent flannel suits on Madison Avenue, amid blasts of leaden verse and the tanked-up clatter of the iron regiments of fashion and nitroglycerin shrieks of the theories of advertising and the mustard gas of sinister, intelligent editors, who were run down by the drunken taxicab of absolute reality, who jumped off the Brooklyn Bridge. This actually happened, and walked away unknown and forgotten into the ghostly days of Chinatown soup alleyways and fire trucks, not even one free beer, who sat out their windows in despair, fell out of the subway window, jumped in the filthy passage, leaped on Negroes, cried all over the street, danced on broken wine glasses, barefoot, smashed phonograph records of nostalgic European 1930s German jazz, finished the whiskey, and threw up groaning into the bloody toilet, moans in the ears, and the blast of colossal steam whistles, who barreled down the highways of the past, journeying to each other's hot-rod Golgotha, jail, solitude, watch, or Birmingham jazz incarnation, who drove cross country 72 hours to find out if I had a vision, or you had a vision, or he had a vision, to find out eternity. Who journeyed to Denver, who died in Denver, who came back to Denver and waited in vain, who watched over Denver and brooded and loaned in Denver, and finally went away to find out the time. And now Denver is lonesome for her heroes who fell on their knees in hopeless cathedrals, praying for each other's salvation and light and breasts. Until the soul illuminated its hair for a second, who crashed through the mines in jail, waiting for impossible criminals with golden heads and the charm of reality in their hearts, who sang sweet blues to Alcatraz, who retired to Mexico to cultivate a habit, a Rocky Mount to tender Buddha, or Tangerines to boys, or Southern Pacific to the black locomotive, or Harvard to Narcissus, to Woodlawn to the daisy chain, or grave, who demanded sanity trials, accusing the radio of hypnotism, and were left with their insanity in their hands and a hung jury, who threw potato salad at CCNY lecturers on Dadaism and subsequently presented themselves on the granite steps of the madhouse with shaven heads and harlequin speech of suicide, demanding instantaneous lobotomy, and who were giving instead the concrete void of insulin, matrazole, electricity, hydrotherapy, psychotherapy, occupational therapy, ping pong, and amnesia, who in humorless protest overturned only one symbolic ping pong table, resting briefly in catatonia, returning years after truly bold, except for a wig of blood and tears and fingers, to the visible madman doom of the wards of the mad towns of the East, pilgrim states, rocklands, and greystones, voted holes, bickering with the echoes of the soul, rocking and rolling in the midnight solitude, bent dolmen realms of love, dreams of life and nightmare, bodies turned to stone, as heavy as the moon, with mother finally fucked, and the last fantastic book flung out of the tenement window, and the last door closed at 4 a.m., and the last telephone slammed at the wall in reply to the last furnished room emptied down to the last piece of mantel furniture, a yellow paper rose twisted on the wire hanger in the closet, and even that imaginary, nothing but a hopeful little bit of hallucination. Oh, Carl, well, you are not safe, I'm not safe, and now you're really in the total animal soup of time, and who therefore ran through the icy streets, obsessed with the sudden flash of the alchemy of the use of the ellipsis catalog, a variable measure, and the vibrating plane, who dreamed and made incarnate gaps in time and space through images juxtaposed and trapped through a candle of the soul between two visual images, and join the elemental verbs and set the noun and dash of consciousness, together jumping with the sensation of Pater omnipotens aeterna Deus, to recreate the syntax and measure of poor human prose, and stand before you speechless and intelligent and shaking with shame, rejected, yet confessing out the soul to conform to the rhythm of thought in his naked and endless head, the madman bomb and angel-beaten time, unknown, yet putting down here what might be left to say in time come after death, and rose rain grenade in the ghostly clothes of jazz, in the gold horn shadow of the band, and blew the suffering of America's naked mind for love into an alley, lama, sabachthani saxophone cry that shivered the cities down to the last radio with the absolute heart of the poem of life, butchered out of their own bodies, good to eat 1,000 years. Thank you. See you next time.